Good morning, everybody. It's great to see all of you here today. I see a lot of familiar faces. All right, so I guess we can get started. We'll let the stragglers come in later. So my name is Brian Powell. I'm a program manager in AX Public Sector. And with me today is Neil Robinson, who's also a senior program manager in public sector as well. And we're going to talk about Dynamics AX R2 features in the public sector context today. Right? See how this thing works here. Order your free copy of Inside Microsoft Dynamics AX12 today. There you go. All right. So the next slide is the standard disclaimer slide that we have. So please read this and understand that we make no warranties, express, implied, or statutory to the, yada, yada, yada. And here we go. So with AX 2012, last year we released the Public Sector Industry Solution. And as you can see on the top right, we introduced a lot of new features that you can use for public sector, including billing classification, ALEs, year-end processing. We also introduced the idea of budget control as well. So what we want to talk about today are the features that are new to AX 2012 R2. We're going to be focusing on a few areas. We're going to be focusing on benefit eligibility, payroll, budget planning, and budget analyzer. So the way we're going to structure this session is we're going to do about 60 to 65 minutes of talk and demo, and I'll leave about the last 10 minutes for questions. And just to let you guys know, if you have any other questions that you can't, we don't have enough time to get to during this session, there is a Chalk and Talk session at 6 o'clock this afternoon, so please join that. So with AX 2012 R2, we use the existing policy framework to allow you to develop rules that allow you to define who is eligible for your benefit. The other thing that we introduce is the idea of eligibility events. So once we can define the rules on who is eligible for your benefit, we run the eligibility based on a specific set of dates, and we also talk about the date effectivity of some of your workers to make sure that they fall within that range. The other thing we want to talk about in terms of payroll is we have full detail on the earnings statement and pay statement, including contributions, deductions, and as you'll see later on the Paycheck, all that information is available to you as well. And also with HR, I want to talk about the link to budget planning through the position forecast sandbox. That'll allow you to plan your fixed personnel costs and import those into a budget plan from HR. Now, when we talk about budget planning, how many of you use Excel to do budget planning still? Show of hands. Okay, that's a good many of you. I'd be curious to see what other tools you guys use to do budget planning. But generally, the good thing about AX 2012 R2 and budget planning is we still allow you to use Excel as the method for inputting as well as making changes to your budget plans. The difference, though, is that AX is the source of truth. What we mean by that is you no longer have to worry about which version of the spreadsheet you have. Did someone else edit it before? Are these the right numbers? Everything is contained in AX. So when you retrieve, you make changes to your budget plans, everything is tracked. The other thing I want to talk about is once your budget plans are approved in the system, you can easily transfer them and turn them into budget register entries, which ideally you would use budget control on later on. And the last thing I want to talk about today is the budget analyzer, which is a new tool that will allow you to analyze your budget versus actuals using the flexibility of dimension sets so that you can look at any particular combination of your financial dimensions and compare budget versus actuals, encumbrances, pre-encumbrances. You can also see your revised budgets as well. Okay? So today's story, we're going to be talking about the city of Maple. We have Jody, who is the Compensation and Benefits Administrator, and she has a new child care benefit that she's been notified of, and she needs to create that benefit and assign it to the workers that are eligible for it, should they decide to participate in it. The next thing I'm going to talk about is Mia, who is the payroll administrator, and she's going to run payroll for the police department. We're going to switch the story over a little bit later on, and we're going to get in the shoes of Brad, who is the budget manager for the city of Maple, and he's going to be generating the budget plans for the police department. And lastly, fast forward a few months into the new fiscal year, and he's going to start analyzing budget versus actuals using the budget analyzer tool. So here's a rough flow of what we're going to be doing today. As you can see on the left side, let me see if I can come down here and point. The left side here, this is the first 3 boxes are what we're going to do for this demo. The first demo, which is going to be Jody with the healthcare benefit. Then we're going to be talking about Mia running payroll. And switch over to Brad and generate a budget plan. And once that plan is created, we'll fast forward to the new year and analyze his budget. So let's go to the demo here. Can everybody see this, especially in the back? Yes? Okay, I see nods. Good. All right. So let's just start with a little story. So Jody receives notification that there's a new benefit that is available from the International Union of Police Associations. And this benefit is a child care benefit that pays $200 per pay period to members of the police union. So she needs to first create the benefit. She needs to figure out who is eligible for the benefit. And should they decide to participate in the benefit, she needs to assign them to this particular benefit. And then we'll be on our way. So the first thing that Jody does is she creates the base benefit. In this case, she creates a child care plan. The payroll impact is contribution only because there are no deductions in this. This is just straight money that is going to members of the police union's salaries, or rather their paycheck. Because there is, this is not a 401k, there is no pre-tax basis, although AX does support many pre-tax bases. So once Jody creates the base benefit, she needs to identify within this benefit, she needs to create an instance of this benefit to talk about the particulars. She needs to talk about who is eligible for this benefit. She needs to define that. She also needs to define the amount of the contribution for this benefit as well. So once she creates the base benefit, Jody creates an instance of this child care plan benefit. As you can see here, she pulls over the elements from the base benefit. She defines some dates. The next thing I want to call attention to here is if you can see the eligibility rules. She's defined it as a rule base for people that are specifically in the police union. Now, AX Benefits supports 3 types of benefit eligibility rules. We support rule-based eligibility, which we'll go into in a little bit. We also support all workers that are eligible for this benefit, such as something that is like a health care plan, a dental plan, sometimes even term life, it depends. And we also support completely bypassing eligibility. So you may be asking, okay, so what's the difference between bypassing eligibility and having a benefit eligible to all workers? Well, in the case of garnishments, they are basically imposed on a worker, so no eligibility needs to be run. The other thing I want to call attention to under the benefit eligibility rules are the eligibility overrides. Now, in this case, Rebecca has been grandfathered into this plan. And this is where you can actually set which workers are exceptions to the eligibility rules here. If we go down a little bit further, we can take a look at the specific details for this instance of the benefit. As you can see, this is for every pay period, and it's a fixed amount. It's $200. AX also supports calculations based off of earning codes. So let's say if you were to have some sort of benefit that is a percentage of your salary, for instance, you can actually put the calculation rate in there and select which earning codes need to be used in this particular calculation. Also in the fact box on the top right, you'll see the currently enrolled workers in this benefit. I have 2, and we're going to go and enroll a couple more later on. So this will give you a good view of your current status of this particular benefit instance. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is you saw that rule that we had defined for the police union. So I'm going to show you right now where that is defined. As I said before, we use the policy framework to allow you to define benefit eligibility rules so that you can decide who is eligible for what benefits. So in this case, we've created a police union policy, and within this policy, we've designated the City of Maple as the organization. And Jody has created a rule for the police union. It's a very, very powerful piece here to the benefit eligibility. As you can see, we've selected all workers where their labor union or all workers that are in this particular labor union, which is the International Union of Police Associations. Now, we can also take a look here at all the additional things that we can define when we create our rules. There are many different attributes on the worker that we can define on these rules. If we go a little bit deeper, we can actually go into and select particular details on the position associated with that worker as well. And if you so choose, we can go from the position into the associated job and get some details there and use that as our defining criteria. Very powerful. So Jody set up this rule, selects all workers that are members of the police union. So what's the next thing that she has to do? She has to now, now that she's defined the benefit, the rule associated with the benefit, she needs to run the eligibility against a set of workers to actually see which actual workers are eligible for this benefit. So she needs to create a new eligibility event. In this case, it's the child care benefit for police. She sets a coverage start date of the new year. In this case, let's say it's January 1st, 2013. And like a lot of different types of benefits, she sets an enrollment start date and an enrollment period, 30 days in this case. She selects all the workers that she wants to run this eligibility on to see if they are eligible for this event. In this case, we've added all the workers in the system. These are about 30 workers. And she selected which benefits she wants to compare against the set of workers. And what that does is it's going to look at the benefit, look at the eligibility rule associated with that benefit, and then figure out which workers are eligible for that benefit. So all Jody needs to do is process the eligibility event. And in this case, I know that there are 4 members of the police union in this set of workers. So once she sees the results of this eligibility event, I'm going to have to scroll down a little bit here, but you will see 5 people. The first one is Chris Ashton, who is the police chief, and you will see 4 more. Now remember, Rebecca is currently not a member of the police union, but she was grandfathered into this benefit. So she also shows up here as well. So we have a total of 5. So once she determines who is eligible for this benefit, once she lets them know, and let's say, for instance, Chris says, I want to participate in this benefit. So she needs to associate Chris, or she needs to add Chris to this benefit, or add this benefit to Chris's worker record. And that is very easily done. First thing Jody does is pull up the list of workers, and she wants to do an enrollment into this benefit. So let's select Chris. I've enrolled some of the others already. So let's select 3 others that we know are not eligible for this benefit. Okay? Jody selects mass benefit enrollment. You can see that the workers that I've checked off were pulled into this form. She selects the child care plan. Let's change the coverage date to the 1st of 2013. And she's going to enroll these 4 people into this benefit. And as you can see, only 1 of the 4 records were updated because only Chris, based on the eligibility event that we ran before, is eligible for this benefit. So now Chris is enrolled and the other 3 are not. Jody's job is now done, at least for now. So what have we done so far? We have created a benefit, or at least Jody has. She's figured out who's eligible for this particular benefit. And once they've decided to participate, she's assigned that benefit to those workers. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to switch it over to Mia, who is the payroll administrator, and she is going to run payroll on the police department. So the first thing that Mia needs to do is she needs to generate the earnings statement for the police department. She selects pay cycle, so let's say biweekly, and let's use the first period of the new fiscal year, because we created that child care plan that is active starting the 1st of 2013 in January. And additionally, she can use this sysquery to identify which set of workers she wants to run payroll for. So let's just say the police department. Okay. So those earning statements were then created, and let's take a look at one of them. And let's take a look at Chris Ashton's earning statement, because he is the police chief. He is the boss, so we'll look at his, see how much he makes. As you can see on this statement, we have details regarding, well, first we see his earning code, but in addition to that, we see how many hours he's worked during this pay period, the rate at which he earns per hour, as well as the amount that he is paid before any calculations, taxes, contributions, deductions. You can also see a good summary of this information. The fact box is on the right side. So once Mia is satisfied with the earning statements, she needs to generate the pay statements. So the first thing she does is she just releases the earning statements. And she generates the pay statements. Again, we're picking the first pay period of the new year. And again, there is this sys query that you can use to define which set of workers you want to actually generate the pay statements for. The other thing that I want to call attention to is that the pay statement, the first part of the pay statement, looks a lot like the earnings statement. Let's go and refresh this. Let's look at Chris's pay statement here. And as you can see, the first part of it basically is the same thing as the earnings statement. You'll see the amount that he is going to be paid before any calculations. The next part of this pay statement will show all of the benefit contributions and deductions calculations on his pay statement. So you can see that he's enrolled in a term life plan, he's enrolled in a dental plan, a medical plan, and he has to pay child support. If we look down at the contributions, we can see the child care plan that Jody created earlier. We can see the $200 that are applied to Chris's pay statement for that particular benefit. So basically, when we added that benefit to Chris, in the previous demo, it shows up here. The next part of the pay statement shows all the different tax calculations associated with the worker's tax region. It's calculated automatically. And the last piece of it is just the benefit accrual calculations, such as paid time off, sick leave, anything that is accrued over time. And if you look at the fact boxes on the top right, you also see a summary of the pay statement, including gross pay, deductions, contributions, and basically what he's earning net. So now that Mia is satisfied with the pay statement, what does she do next? Well, what does everybody want at the end of the day? They want a paycheck. They want to be able to cash that thing and buy things. So let's go and print the paycheck. First thing we do is we post the pay statement to the GL. And then I'm just going to print this check to screen so that you can all see it. We also support printing to a printer, electronic, support many types of printing. As you can see here in all its glory, we have Chris Ashton's paycheck. Has the amount, a nice little signature that I've kind of written there. And as you scroll down, you can also see a complete breakdown of his paycheck, his earnings, contributions, deductions, tax calculations. As you can see on the bottom left there, we have the benefit accruals, so he's accrued pay time off. And going back to our previous demo, you can see the child care plan, $200 at the bottom right. Now, ideally, I just showed you the printing of this paycheck for one person. Generally, what you would do is you would do this in a batch. So when you create the payment journal that you saw before, it would have multiple lines rather than just one line. So you would print multiple checks at once. Okay. So back to this flow. What have we done? Well, Mia has generated the earnings statement for the police department workers. Once she was satisfied with that and released the earnings statement, she generated the pay statement. And as you remember, you can see all the breakdown of the benefits, tax calculations, earnings statements, and benefit accruals on the pay statement. And once Mia was satisfied with that, she printed the paycheck. Very easy, very simple. The next thing we want to talk about is budget planning. So Brad is the budget manager for the city of Maple. And one of his tasks is to create or to work on the budget plan for the police department for the new fiscal year. One of the things he needs to do is he needs to put the fixed employee costs into the police department's budget plan, as well as variable costs as well. So let's do it. Here I'm going to show you the link from HR to budget planning. Here we have the position forecasting sandbox, which is the link from HR to budget planning. And what this does is it allows you to import existing positions into the sandbox so that they can be later used in budget plans. You can import existing positions. You can create new positions that you are going to be budgeting for. You can do that all here. I've already imported 3 of the 4 members of the police department in this case. So let me just go and add Chris Ashton, because he's the only one that's missing so far. Again, the police chief. And he was added to the forecast position sandbox. And as you can see here, this pulls in some important information that Brad will need to use in his budget planning. The first thing I want to call attention to is the FTE equivalent. As you can see, it's 1.0. You can change it to half-time, double, 3 people, 2 people, whatever you like. And this is pulled into the budget plan as well. The other thing I want to call attention to, it also pulls in the compensation associated with the position, as well as any other budget purpose types that Brad may need to take into account when he is pulling in that fixed position amount that he needs to budget for this position. Okay. As you can see here, we also put in the child care plan as well. So now that Brad has all the positions imported into his sandbox, he's going to go into his budget plan, and he's going to want to pull those positions into his budget plan. So first thing he does is he goes into his police budget. And as you can see here, in department request, he already has put in some lines for his variable costs for fiscal year 13. Now, there are many ways that we can do this in budget planning. You can import from the GL. You can import amounts from existing budget plans, fixed assets. Many different ways you can do it. So the only thing he's missing right now are the position amounts for his fixed costs in the police department's budget plan. It's very easy to do. Within the budget plan, all we need to do is select which workers we want. In this case, we can just select by department. Select all of these workers here and add them to this budget plan. Give me 1 second. He selects the scenario that he wants the FTE to be put into. As we can see, those amounts are now brought in. You can see the lines here, the $120,000 for Chris Ashton's compensation, as well as any of the other budget purpose types associated with his record. And you'll see that 4 times because we imported 4 records from position forecasting. The other thing I want to call attention to is that we've also imported the number of FTEs, in this case it's 4, from those 4 people into this budget plan as well. Okay. So now let's go back to the department request amounts. So now that Brad has had both the variable costs and the fixed costs thrown into this budget plan within this department request amount, he wants to move those amounts to the department target. Now, let's say he's giving them 5% more of what they're asking for. It's an easy way to do that. All Brad needs to do is select all the lines and move them to the department target amounts. And here we can set a multiplication factor for all the amounts. So let's do 1.05. And you can see here that now we have department target amounts that are about 5% more than the department request amounts. And another way that you can compare it here is in the fact box. If you can see it on the top right, you can see the department request amount is $2.2 million and the department target amount at $2.3 million. But let's say, Brad wants to make an additional change to the department target amounts. He wants to, do some calculations, see it on a graph, pivot against it. Well, this is where the office add-in comes in. Within a budget plan, he just needs to click Worksheet. And what it's currently doing is it's querying the system based on the specific budget plan that you have. It's going to start Excel, and it is going to load those amounts into the worksheet. And this is going to allow Brad to make changes to the amount, publish those amounts back to AX, and he can also pivot against those amounts as well. A lot of things that he can do. And while that's working, let me show the budget plan hierarchy here. So this is a good visualization of all the budget plans currently in the city of Maple. Now, what we care about here is the police budget. As you can see, I'll get back to that. As we can see here, we can see all the detail associated with these plans at every level associated with your organization. And you can actually drill into these if you like later on and get more information. But let's go back to the Excel. So this loaded, as you can see, the police department plan. And Brad has this particular template defined for his organization at this level. So he can see fund, main account, the description, and specifically for the police department, which is Department 210. He can see both the department request and department target amounts. Another thing that he's done is he's created a quick calculation to determine the variance between the two amounts. And also here, he is, once he refreshes this pivot, he can actually see this visualized as well. As you can see, all of the blue bars are just a little bit taller than the red bars. So we know that the department target amounts are, more than the department request amounts. But let's say Brad went overboard and he said, oh man, I gave these people too much money. I need to make a change to the department target amount. It's very simple. All he needs to do is, let's say he wants to take infrastructure down a notch. So from $735,000, he wants to, let's say $237,970,987. Yeah, let's just do that. Wants to make that change to the department target amount. So once he makes that change within this instance of the budget plan, clicks on the Dynamics AX tab. Now this is a tab that is added to Excel once you enable the Office add-in. And he's going to publish that amount back into AX. And what that does is it's going to take Brad's changes, bring them back to AX, and that is the source of truth. So that amount is the current amount at this point. As you can see, the variance changed, this amount changed. If we refresh the pivot, we can see here that now that really, really, really tall red line is next to a really short blue line. In addition, let's go back to that budget plan. We can also see that the department target amount has been reduced from $2.2 million, or well, actually it was 2.3 before, to 1.8. So like I said, source of truth. So now that Brad has his department target amounts, he needs to go through the budget planning process and get the budget approved. And in AX 2012 budget planning, we utilize workflow to determine what can be done at each stage of the budget planning process. This can be easily configured to set up at which stage, if you want amounts automatically allocated to the organizational budget plan that is one level above you, you can choose to distribute below. So it supports top-down and bottom-up for budget planning. You can also set up different approvals at different levels for a particular budget plan as well. So this will allow you to set up a process that is secure for your budget planning. The other thing I want to mention, too, is that we have built-in security for budget plans. So let's say that your worker is working on a particular budget plan and is associated with the police department. Well, built in, that person can only see budget plans that are at that organizational node level. So if somebody was in the fire department, somebody was in parks, he wouldn't be able to see those plans. Additionally, if you want more security, there are XDS policies that you can define if there are any special exceptions, or if you have very complicated security on your budget planning. So, going back to this flow, we've gotten pretty far, I think. We have Brad here, and he was doing the budget planning for the new fiscal year for the police department. What he did was he imported positions from the police department to calculate his fixed personnel costs, added those positions into the police department budget plan. Then what we did was we copied those amounts with a multiplication factor of 5%, to the target amounts. Brad wanted to make an additional change to the target amounts, so he went into the template or into the Excel, made the change, published it back to AX. AX is a source of truth. Then he went to go and get it approved. Okay. So what's the next thing he needs to do? Now that the budget is approved, he needs to use it. And that can be done. Brad needs to generate a budget register entry from an existing budget plan. So in this case, all he needs to do is select the budget plan that he wants to pull the amounts from and put on a new budget register entry. He wants to pull the department target amounts, say those are the ones that are approved. And he's going to put this into a new budget register entry. Basically, if you click, so what it's doing now is it's pulling over the amounts and creating the budget register entry. And we can see that here. There we go. So now Brad is free to use this for his budget control. What we're going to do, I'm going to quickly switch back to the slide deck here. What we're going to do now is, now that Brad has created the actual budget, let's fast forward a few months into the new fiscal year, and he wants to see how he's doing for the police department. He's going to analyze his budget. So this is the budget analyzer, and it allows you to use the flexibility of the dimension sets to compare your budgets versus revised budgets versus actuals, encumbrances, pre-encumbrances, and you don't need to be restricted by your account structure in terms of which financial dimensions you want to analyze against. So in this case, we've defined for a particular department, in this case it's the police department here, for the new year. You can also set a specific date range if you want, or you can use one of the predefined date intervals. And he can see a breakdown of how he is doing, in this case, let's just say per main account, for each of, full-time, group insurance, travel vehicles. He can see original budget, his revised, his encumbrances, pre-encumbrances, as well as how much percent of his budget he's currently used up. He can drill down even further if he likes. I'm going to show you that right now. Say he wants to look more into how much he's been spending on vehicles. So he sees that he's got an original budget, he had some revised budget amounts, actual expenditures, but he wants more detail. So what does he do? Clicks here, and he sees the original and the revised budget register entries for this particular for this particular combination. If he wants even more detail, you can actually go back into the original document and figure out why that number is there. You can do the same thing with actuals. You can drill into the original document with his actuals as well, and Let's say for encumbrances and pre-encumbrances, it's a little different case. He can see the transactions that hit this particular combination. He can drill down into the original document. In this case, this is a purchase requisition. You can see additional details related to this. And because we took this particular purchase requisition into a purchase order, he can see the reference transactions at the bottom as well. It's a very powerful tool. So, Brad is satisfied. Brad has a really good look into all the different areas that he wants to look at with regard to the police department. And in his case, he's done. So now we have completed the story. We have gone from Jody, we created child care benefit, figured out who is eligible, the police union workers, assigned that benefit to Chris Ashton because he wanted to be a part of it and he was eligible for it. We switched the story over to Mia. She wanted to generate payroll for the police department, so she generated the earnings statement, the pay statement, once she was satisfied with the earnings statement and released the earnings statement. We went over the complete breakdown of the pay statement, and from there, we printed the paycheck. We switched the story over to then Brad, and we showed the link between HR and budget planning. We imported existing positions from the police department into the forecast position sandbox. We then imported them into a budget plan that already had some variable costs for the police department. We then took those department request amounts, copied them over to department target amounts with a factor of, well, plus 5%. And then Brad wanted to make some additional changes, do some additional calculations. We went into the Excel, to the Excel add-in for this particular budget plan. We made a change, published it back into AX. Again, AX is a source of truth. We went over the budget plan hierarchy, security. We went through workflow for this particular plan to get it to approval. Once it was approved, Brad created the budget register entry from the budget plan. It was used in budget control. Fast forward into the new year, he wanted to analyze his budget, and he did. So some of the key points I want you guys all to take away from this is that the policy framework that we use for defining benefit eligibility rules is really powerful. It allows you to, take many different pieces associated with workers, positions, and jobs, and use that to define your rule. Again, I showed you the link between HR and budget plan. I showed you the Office add-in, the Excel capabilities of budget planning, made some changes, pivoted against it, used some formulas, published back to AX. And from there, or from the approved plan, generated the budget register entries. And again, the budget analysis tool allows you to use the flexibility of the dimension sets to analyze your budget against many different combinations of your financial dimensions. So this was an overview of public sector for R2. Some related sessions I think you should take a look at. We have a budget planning session later this afternoon. Neil and Sagita are giving that. We also have Brandon Potter and, I guess Tanya's not here, but we have the HR team in here as well. And they're going to be doing HR advanced capabilities, getting started, and payroll. So please go and check out their sessions if you want more in-depth on any of these areas. This also includes benefits as well as benefits eligibility. And later on today, specifically for public sector, we have a Chalk and Talk at 6 o'clock p.m. I believe it's in this room. So if you have questions you want to ask, afraid to ask in front of all of us people here, that's fine. Just come, and we'll talk. We also have InstructorLed Labs at the technical conference. I'm sure you've seen this slide already if you've gone to other presentations. And if you want a focus room, just email daxfocus@microsoft.com and get a time slot. We can talk. Right? We also have Information Source. I don't know if you guys know about this, but this is a site that will it's pretty much a question and answer repository. If you have a lot of questions regarding AX, can AX do this? Can AX do that? If you want more information through presentations or Word documents, go to Information Source to get more information. I believe they were handing out session evaluations as you were coming in. So if you wouldn't mind before you leave, can you please fill them out? It would do me a lot of good. Lets me know if I'm, basically telling you what you want to hear. And at this point, we can open it up for some questions. Yes? Steve? Sure.
My question is, you created the budget register entry, from the budget plan.
Yep.
And I think I missed it a little bit there. If I'm on the plan itself, plan form, did I create the budget register entry from there, or did you actually go to the budget register entry form and select plan?
So the question was, if you want to create a budget register entry from a budget plan, can you do it within a budget plan? Is that the question?
The answer is no. We actually have a generation process, Steve, that will take it. So you can select multiple information, have different criteria on it. So it's all actually a batch process. So using the SIS batch framework to do that. So you don't go into a specific register. It does have the ability to create one or update one.
Okay. Yes?
Hi, Brian.
Hey.
On the budget analyzer form, can you see unposted transactions as well as posted?
I believe you can only see posted transactions. I'll have to get back to you on that. Yeah, only posted? Yeah, only posted. The question was, on the budget analyzer, can you see any unposted transactions? And the answer is no. You can only see transactions that are posted. Sure. Question? Yes.
Yeah, I have a two-part question on creating the DRE from the budget plan. One is when you take a plan and you do post
Yeah.
Are there tracks that I've already taken this plan and created?
We don't have a flag on the plan that says we've transferred that over, no.
And my second part of that question is with this plan, you know, there were the 2 stages.
Yep.
And is there some way that I can, within the plan, say, make sure that somebody only takes that target and doesn't take the request? Because I only want to take the finished deal, not the...
You mean when you're creating the budget register entry?
Yes.
Okay, so the question is, if I have more than one scenario or one set of numbers, department target or department request, is there anything that keeps me from using one set of numbers, like the department request, because I don't want to use that to create the budget register entry?
Only one ever take it from the department.
Now, we could do that a few ways. You can set up a stage so that when the budget plan is finally complete, you can actually make the other ones not available. So only that one amount, say the approved amount, is what you want to do for a transfer. Now, and so there is that level of control. But bear in mind, the only person who can do that transfer is someone who's in the Brad persona. So it's more restricted from that perspective.
Understood, but human error. I mean, you want to set things up systemically as much as you can.
But, and when it is transferring, right, it's transferring to a budget register. That register itself has not been
Posted yet, yeah. So if you have workflow associated with that, then I'm sure they'll be able to.
And
You
you may
can-
want to move it in parts. You may want to do only transfer part of the budget plan, or you may be able to want to aggregate. So we need to be able to handle those scenarios as well.
In the back, yes.
Are you able to see forecast out? So as the year goes by, you want to see your year-end position. You want to see by how far you're varying from your target. So you can start to make predictions, so claw back expenditure if necessary, if it's going the wrong way.
Are you talking about the budget analyzer? Are you talking about, oh, so the question was, so that I understand it, are you able to compare this against your,
So you've got a budget at the start of the year. You've got
Yes.
your actuals. They may be going way off. So you've got a forecast outturn for the year end. Are you able to see and compare that across different departments as to where the problem's coming from?
so you want to be able to forecast budget amounts that are using this analyzer to see going on through the fiscal year, you know, whether you will go over or not? Is that what the question is? This is, yeah.
We have the ability to track this in actual, including the income which, like, what you will be able to analyze here by different departments, you can analyze the data in terms of budget forces and actual. We don't do is, what we don't do is predict, hey, what could be potential if you continue to spend at this rate, what would be your amount we want to do. But you can see what's the actual as of this day, or you can also compare it to any period you want to compare. But what we will, we don't have the ability is to say, if you continue to spend at this rate, what would be your estimated cost at the end? If that makes sense. Great question. I'm glad somebody asked this question. Excel is standard. If you want to do that, the file is just standard Excel export option. The one question I'm not quite sure is whether it will maintain the preview or it will only give you the graph part. I think it will give you the graph. So you will see the details, the grid section, not the preview you see on the left one.
Yes.
How hard would it be to look at actuals from previous years? So if you wanted to see like the
Oh.
last 2 years actuals.
Yeah, well, all you need to do is,
In the budget planning,
Oh.
you can actually bring those in as multiple scenarios. That's our recommendation to basically make the data more homogeneous. So it's got exactly the same structure, the same date breaks. But you can bring in as many of the prior years as you want before.
and you can create your own scenarios to track those amounts. If you have actuals from the prior year, you can set them as a bucket of those amounts, and you can, you know, make those available on your Excel, so you can actually do your comparison there, if you like. You can. Yep.
We'll show you a bit more of that actually if you come to the session that we're doing this afternoon. It's probably better case for those questions.
Yeah, for more of a deep dive into budget planning, you know, and to actually see it, you know, you can go to Neil and Sagita's session.
I saw in your workflow before that you had an automated task in there to aggregate the budget plans.
That's right.
Can you just show what that was?
Okay.
You'd like to see it in workflow, or you'd like to see what it does?
Like I can show you it in workflow, but I don't have this actually set up for this particular demo.
So are you
Um,
coming to the session? Yeah. Because I'm going to go right through a little bit of that setup. So he's just going to show a bit more of allocation, and then we'll go from there. And if that doesn't answer it, at the end of that one, you can come up and we can have a better look. Because
Yeah.
it's really here, it's just an automated task that you drop into a workflow stage. There's all the setup before that and how it aggregates it.
Yep.
Make sure you catch us if it's not accurate. We want to make sure that's accurate.
Yes, down the front.
Yeah, for the supplemental Excel worksheet, so when you're exporting to create a budget entry worksheet, that part, can you generate those by dimension? So for example, I'm the police department financial controller.
Mm-hmm.
I want to generate a few of those templates, one for the police operations team, one for the procurement team to fill out their budgets. Can it?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
It'll automatically basically filter by those dimensions, but you can also generate different templates if you want by dimension.
Do those all at once? Yeah.
It'll be more work, so the more you want to enable that, the more setup.
Yeah. You can choose. You can choose in your template design, which fields you want to make available and which you don't.
Once again, I'll call back to the next. I am actually going to open Excel. I'm going to show you the designer. We'll do a little bit of that at the end of the session, depending on how good for time.
Session's at 2:45.
In the theater.
Any other questions? Yes. So the question was, for the budget analyzer, we currently use dimension sets. Do you plan to use the derived financial hierarchies for budget analyzer? Actually, Swami can answer that question for you.
Probably not. The dimension set gives you a lot more flexibility. The hierarchy is much more aggregation. We can do that on the queue side. The analyzer is coming, bringing the data from the transaction system, so we won't be able to do that. It's a lot more complicated. Unless you see a very specific scenario where we can see much more value, we might consider that. But right now, there's no plan.
Any questions on HR, benefits, or payroll? While we have some of our esteemed colleagues here from HR. Yes?
Can you elaborate on the benefits accruals? Like if you want to set up sick vacation accruals, how can you configure that?
So the question is, how can you configure different rates of accrual for particular accrued benefits, such as vacation? So Brandon will be able to talk to you about that.
Accruals is built into the payroll module, and that is hour-based only, so you can actually, based on the earnings and the hours, it's just the rate of pay for the accruals. We can go year-end carryover values. That's the way what's earnings look with complete values.
Again, I assume you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I'll be covering that in the payroll session. Payroll session this afternoon at 4, or excuse me, tomorrow morning at 10:30.
So just to highlight, right, what we wanted to do in this session is in R2, we did a lot of the work for the industry-specific scenarios, but a lot of the work was done in the core product. So in this session, we kind of covered the high level, where are the touch points we had done. If you wanted to learn more about it, there is a deep dive session for each of the area in afternoon. Of the things we showed, except the budget analyzer, everything else was in the core product. We just showed you how you can apply that concept into public sector and how you can utilize the functionality for public sector agencies. The budget analyzer, the inquiry screen that we showed, that is only available with industry.
There is one other difference is the budget planning. When you generate the budget registers, it does support the concept of provisional budget, which we don't have in core 2012. But as Swami said, we're really just continuing the pattern of if we think and everything we can get into the core product, we will. The public sector section is about what we can do and use and how we can leverage that.
One thing I want to quickly talk about is we actually are starting a public sector partner and customer council. We are using a new way to develop software, which involves something called scenario-focused engineering. And what that does is, what we do is we actually go to customers, actual customers, and we say, hey, what are your pain points when you are doing your job? And based off of that feedback, it really helps us to develop software that you guys will, definitely want to use and will find very useful. So if you're interested in joining this council, you would be providing feedback on some of our scenarios. You would be, talking with us every once in a while to let us know about, what pain points you currently, are seeing in your job. And we will take all that information in and, develop software based off of it. So if you're interested, please see me.
When you say customer, but we also invite
Partner and customer council, yes. Yes.
If you have heard about, Windows 7 hack, that was my idea. If you want to put your ideas into the product, that's your opportunity to join us.
That's right. So please see me.